Welcome to the 2023 Year Ahead Horoscopes. This is Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness with Miss Jenny. So we're going to go a little old school here, and it's going to be a really brief video. We're going to get you on your way with some new ways to approach this. So this year, this is what we have to look forward to, my friends. Jupiter will be in Aries until May, when it will move into Taurus. Saturn will be in Aquarius, and it will move into Pisces in March, and Pluto will also move from Capricorn into Aquarius in March. Now that starts off the beginning of the month, or the beginning of the year, so it's going to be pretty active. And just real quick, before I do the January horoscopes, I'm going to go ahead and give you this. In the month of January, basically from the 12th to the 22nd, but very, very definitely between the 12th and the 18th, expect a tremendous concentration of aggressive energy. So in your travels, because Gemini is involved, so cars, planes, trains, anything that's a moving vehicle, be very, very aware of your surroundings. Accidents are more likely to happen with more frequency during this time, and also to be more devastating in the results. Oh, sorry. I guess you probably need something to look at, right? And things are also most likely to be more explosive. So for those of you who work, just as a real quick thing, those of you who work with potentially explosive personalities or chemicals or environments, these dates from the 12th, 22nd, you want to be very, very careful about. All right, so now let's get on with the year. So the first thing that I want you guys to do today is I want you to make a circle. You can do it. So we're basically going to draw like a big pizza pie. Okay, so you draw that in 4 quarters. And move this up. Then we're going to go ahead and put in our extra pizza slices. So really what we want here are 12 slices of the pie. Now, for those of you who don't know your time of birth, you'll be thrilled to learn that you don't need it for this exercise. So we're going to do what is considered a solar house or a solar horoscope using just your sun sign. So for instance, since Pisces is always last, we'll use Pisces first. If your sun sign is Pisces, as an example, what am I doing? You're going to put that right here, okay? And this will become your first house. And then from there, you're going to put in all the signs consecutively in their proper order around the wheel. So for those of you who aren't sure which order the signs need to go in, you can just follow along here. This is the order everything's supposed to go. So and you're going to do that until you get back to the beginning. So what we have constructed is a solar house chart. And you can, if you're feeling good, you can put your sun right there to remind you of what we're working with. Now, if you know your moon sign, which is fairly easy to find online, you can go ahead and pop your moon sign in there as well. I have the moon in Libra, so I'm going to put mine right here. Now remember, each sign covers this pizza pie slice moving forward, right? So Virgo would be here, and my little misshapen pie slice, this is Libra, and it's there. So the moon in Libra is going to go there for me. All right, and you'll do the same in your chart. Now, here's what we're going to do with this year's horoscope. So the first thing that we know is that Jupiter is in Aries, and then it's going to go to Taurus. So with our solar horoscope, I want you to find the house where where Aries sits, right? So in this particular case, with Pisces rising, Jupiter is going to be on the 2nd house, and then it's going to move to the 3rd. And you can kind of do it like that so you know what you're looking at. So go ahead and take a minute and situate yourself here where Jupiter is going to go in your chart for this year. And let's talk about Jupiter. So when Jupiter's in Aries, right up through May, because we've got Jupiter in there now, Jupiter's moving super fast through the sign of Aries. Jupiter likes being in Aries because it's a fire planet. Aries is a fire sign. So there's lots of energy and enthusiasm imbued with this. Now also too, we know that Jupiter brings blessings and luck and opportunities. Jupiter brings a whole lot of other stuff too, like, hot air and promises. But it can be a really useful thing. So, where Jupiter lands in your chart, it's going to inflate, exaggerate, pump up the volume, pump up the volume. Sorry, old song. And it's going to bring you opportunities to expand and increase what the house rules. So for this particular chart with Pisces rising, Jupiter in second house obviously suggests that resources are going to be more abundant and opportunities to have more resources will become more abundant. Now, I will warn you, when you have a second house activation, because that would be the second house, it doesn't always look like getting a multi-million dollar job or a giant pay raise, or winning the lottery. I mean, these things certainly can happen, but remember, with the second house, because we're all concerned about our finances always, right? The second house is very much about resources and building blocks, things that you have to build with, so that the things that are being expanded and the opportunities that are being given to you may not necessarily be cold hard cash. It may be the very things that you need to bring you more cash in your life. So make sure you keep an open mind about how these things are appearing so you can make better use of them. Now, when Jupiter moves down into the third house in this chart, which is also going to be Taurus, it's going to have a very different kind of impact. It will hit differently. Jupiter in Taurus is great because Jupiter in Taurus will stabilize things, and Taurus is the sign of the second house, resources, building blocks. So when Jupiter moves into Taurus, it's going to activate all that Taurus energy for everybody. So we can expect with Jupiter moving into Taurus, regardless of the house placement, when Jupiter moves into Taurus, we can absolutely expect opportunities to really improve and increase our security, right? Our stability in life, more resources to build with. This is great stuff. For this particular chart, just as an example, we know that it's going to bring opportunities to improve resources, building blocks, create more stability and security. And it's going to, in this chart, would fall in the third house. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the house, the solar house Jupiter falls in for you, and you're going to interpret that through the lens of that thing. So the third house has to do with teaching and communications and writing. It has a lot to do with anything that involves communication, obviously. It also has a lot to do with short distance travel and networking, like in the immediate area. If you look up the rulerships for the third house, it'll give you some sense of where this increase in stabilization and opportunities for building your resources could present themselves through third house activities. So whatever house this is falling in your chart, that's where you're going to experience that Jupiter. So that's your homework, my friends, is look up house rulerships. Okay. Now, when you look up house rulerships, you're going to get a lot of keywords. The first house is rules the ego, it rules the physical body, it rules this, that, a whole lot of things that may not seem really intimately connected. And it can be very overwhelming and confusing, but that is the art of astrology, and that is one of the litmus tests of a good astrologer out of this list, this pot or this potpourri of different things that represent rulerships that come under the auspices of that house or that planet or that sign, being able to figure out which one it is and is most likely to present and make a cohesive sentence out of that, a statement, a thought, an idea, a suggestion. That is where the real art of astrology comes in. So you're now on your way to learning how to be a really good astrologer just by researching your house rulerships, looking at Jupiter, and seeing where it's falling in your solar house. Okay, so Jupiter's going to give us some really good stuff here. Now, the thing about Jupiter, is that Jupiter can be a little excessive, and Jupiter is going to take some hits. It's going to take some hits because it still has to get past that Uranus. And still has to do a few other things, and it's going to roll back and forth through the year. And we'll talk about it for each month as we get there. But for right now, hang on to the idea that Jupiter will do what Jupiter always does, and it brings us opportunities for increasing things, and in this particular case, resources, and also giving us a way out. So hang on to that. And remember, it may show up in ways different than you expect. So don't look for the big bag of cash to fall in your lap. Look for the things that will help you become more financially or stable or life secure. So it's there. It's there. It just may not be presented the way you think it is. Okay, now the next thing we have going on, and oh, sorry, also, this Jupiter in Taurus, remember, right here, this kicks in May, right? So the transition is going to be May 2023. So this Jupiter transition from one house to another in your chart, wherever that is, the transition is going to occur in spring, like in May 2023. It's going to switch signs, and then you'll feel like the shift in the wind. It's still active before and after that. It's just a slightly different emphasis. So watch that and make a diary so that you can learn from it and kind of identify what's happening. It's very exciting stuff. Okay, now when we get to March, we've got double hitters here, okay? So on the one hand, we have Saturn in Aquarius moving into Pisces, and simultaneously we have Pluto, moving into Aquarius. Now, this is going to be an interesting, right here, these guys. This is going to be an interesting experience because a couple of things. One, Aquarius and Pisces are both humanitarian signs. So this is really about the bigger picture, like the much bigger picture, not the big I, little you. This is about, teamwork, right? The other thing is that these two signs are in what they call a semi-sextile or a 30-degree aspect, which is not as fun as it sounds. So with 30-degree aspect, the challenge with a semi-sextile is that it is mostly an irritating aspect. So what you have are two planets that are kind of operating in their blind spot and aren't really sure what they're doing. We're going to talk about that more in a second. So let's start with by placing Saturn somewhere in the chart. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have this, but we'll put it here. Let's say you carry this transiting Saturn in Aquarius going into Pisces. Let's say your Saturn, that Saturn is going to be here in your 4th house. Oh, wait a minute, that's not right. What am I doing? Sorry. Getting ahead of myself. Saturn in Pisces, Aquarius, right. So Saturn here in Aquarius will transition into Pisces in March. In this particular wheelhouse, right, that means that Saturn has, up until now, been sitting in that 12th house. Now, we know the 12th house has a lot to do with deep psychological, well, maybe you don't. Okay, so the 12th house has a lot to do with deep psychological work. It's the house of mental health. It also has to do with deep healing, recovery, respite. So end of life matters. So anywhere we are in a position where we are forced to drop out of life and really get deep within our healing, right, on a spiritual or physical or emotional level, this comes under the 12th house. The 12th house is also the house of karma. Prisoners and captives come under the 12th house. Also large animals too. That's another conversation. So Saturn sitting in someone's 12th house, right, is going to heavily emphasize the Saturnian or the karmic side, the hard work side, the paying your dues side of that 12th house. Saturn in Aquarius in and of itself has been challenging, we know, because Saturn has been in square to Uranus these last couple of years, right? And this is what's had everybody crazy, about possible stock market crash and not World War III, but the Great Depression and another recession and all of this woohoo, right? This has been making people crazy the last couple of years. Now these two planets have moved away from each other, thank God, right? And made some space. And Saturn is actually going to be moving into a much more supportive position to Uranus moving forward. But for right now, we're kind of here finishing up. So Saturn in these final degrees of Aquarius, without looking at the houses, says a lot about Well, our commitment to our goals in terms of the bigger picture, right? What's really important to us in the larger scheme of things. Saturn in Aquarius also tests your integrity. Ooh, there's one for you. So, and remember, we're not out of the woods yet because this doesn't change signs until March. So, the biggest, heaviest, most arduous tests of your character and integrity may be coming now through March. So remember that. It's never too late to get a passing grade on something, especially something as important as your character and your integrity. One of the things that you may have noticed while Saturn's been going through Aquarius, and certainly in these last few months, or the last, because we're in the last degrees of Aquarius now, is that those very things have been called forward as an issue and tested and graded. They've been getting grades, pass fail grades on this. And there have been consequences, because Saturn is consequences, for matters of ethics and integrity. If you look around you, everywhere there's been an issue where people have not been acting or getting away with less than ethical behavior, like lacking integrity or working with less than ethical behavior, they have been called to the carpet and they are now facing their penalties, their consequences for being that person, right? That slimy person who thinks you can just do whatever you want. This is the Saturn and Aquarius effect. And what you're going to do is looking at your solar house, figuring out where that Aquarius is in your chart, in your solar chart, and putting it there. With Saturn and Aquarius in the 12th house, this has been a much more intense demand for doing the right thing. And it's not over yet. Again, we've got until March to get through this. So the tests may get heavier and deeper in this particular case. The other place that this Saturn in Aquarius is going to be most challenging for you if you're carrying it is if you happen to have 7, 8, 10, right here in the 8th house. So if you're set up in such a way that this Aquarius is here, such Cap. So if you have Cancer rising, Capricorn's here, Aquarius is here. So if you have Cancer rising, this Saturn in Aquarius is going to sit in your 8th house and has been for quite some time. And it is going to be really challenging. Your mettle is really going to be tested right now through March. So be aware of that. So the 8th and 12th house seem to be getting it the worst in terms of heavy challenges to your integrity and your character. But, if you pass it, you'll pass with the flying colors and get all the benefits and the rewards and promotion and the support, the uplifting support that you need to move forward in life from Saturn. If you don't pass that test, you're going to find yourself taking, one step forward and 6 steps back, because you've got to pay those debts. You've got to pay make good on those consequences for your failing the test, and that puts you even further behind the 8 ball. So rather than moving forward in life, you're going to find yourself really struggling because you'll be pushed backward to try and start over again. Now, Saturn is going to move into Pisces. So what you're going to do, just like we did here with Jupiter, we're going to look at Saturn and what is Saturn doing, right? And what solar house is it happening in? In this particular wheel, we know because Pisces rises, Saturn moves into that first house. Which is challenging at best. So now you'll read a lot, just for those of you who carry Pisces, Sun in Pisces, you're going to read a lot about Saturn in Pisces Saturn in the first house having a lot to do with depression and, woe is me and the world is out to get me, and literally the world really being out to get you because things just fall apart, nothing goes your way, everything's an uphill battle, which it's going to feel like. But remember, my friend, the struggle makes you stronger, and strong things are beautiful things. We love strong hearts, strong minds, and strong bodies, okay? And strong spirits. And the only way you get strong is if you struggle. So if you're dealing with Saturn in your first house and everything is really feeling like a struggle, like, boy, talk about dark nights of the soul, understand that struggle is about making you a stronger, more beautiful version of yourself. But you got to struggle to get there. You need this challenge so that you can become more of a better version of yourself than you thought was possible. Saturn's a beautiful thing when you use it right, but it's not easy. Now, for everybody else, understand that Saturn in Pisces is, again, still, it's like the wet blanket at the party, right? Because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's where we put everything we don't want to deal with, right? Poor Pisces. So you can think of Pisces as kind of like the attic or the basement in the house where you toss all the junk because you don't want to see it anymore and you just forget that it's there. But it's there and it's piling up. With Saturn and Pisces, it requires this combination, Saturn and Pisces. What this combination is about cleaning up our crap, literally cleaning up our crap. So some of you, as Jupiter has been in Aries, may have felt a sudden inspiration or confidence or desire to start fresh, and you may have already started with a physical housekeeping, or clearing out the clutter and, giving stuff away and just literally making more physical space around you to just literally so you can breathe and think, right? With Saturn in Pisces, the demand is to clear out your crap, to literally this time make it a point to get into your stuff and clean it up. Stop ignoring it. Stop neglecting it. Stop pretending it's going to go away on its own. Stop pretending that it's not a problem because you're not dealing with it right now. Get into your stuff. This promises us liberation and freedom on the deepest levels, and especially in very karmic, emotional, psychological, spiritual levels, wherever you need to be freed from those chains. This will give it to you if you do the work. And part of the work is getting the garbage out, whatever way that needs to happen. So look again in your wheel, your solar wheel, if you're where Pisces is in your chart, and that's where Saturn is going to transition into, and that's where you're going to be doing the most intense cleanup work, right? So the recycling and garbage people and the, we take your junk, truck is all showing up in that house where Saturn in Pisces is going to show up. That's where you're going to do your most amazing deep work. So I'll just give you an example. And again, go back to your house rulerships, right? And figure out all the list of possibilities for the house that Saturn in Pisces is sitting in to give you a feel for where you might be doing your most deep and profoundly liberating and freedom causing cleanup. Because ultimately Saturn in Pisces is very much about liberation. One of the things that Saturn in Pisces, it's also the placement for scapegoats, but ultimately liberation and freedom on a deeply karmic or spiritual level, enlightenment, right? This is where Saturn in Pisces wants to take you if you're willing to do the work. Okay. So for instance, if we had, I'll give you an example. Let's say you had Virgo rising, right? And you've got Pisces over here. So Saturn would be coming from your 6th house, right? We're going to pretend this is Pisces. Saturn would be coming from your 6th house and moving into Pisces in your 7th. Now we know the 7th house is the house of marriage and partnerships. So with Saturn going to 7th, there's always this like, ooh, my marriage is going to fall apart, or if you're single, oh, I'm going to get married. But it's deeper than that, right? Because remember, this is about cleaning up your crap. So when Saturn in Pisces, if it were in the 7th house that you're experiencing this, you would experience this need to clean up your internal garbage as expressed through the lens and experience of your relationships with other people. So relationships may become more problematic. Relationships may become more burdensome. Relationships may become impossible in some ways. But in all those instances, ultimately, the real work is not about holding other people accountable for what they're doing wrong in a relationship. That Saturn in Pisces in the 7th house is about you holding yourself accountable for your crap, cleaning up your garbage, and letting other people sort themselves out as best they can. But ultimately, your primary job is for you to clean up your own closets and basements and attics. And you're just feeling it and having it mirrored back to you most clearly. In this case, it would be the 7th house. So when you look at the thing, look at where Pisces falls in your solar chart, and that's going to tell you where this Saturn in Pisces is offering you the chance for liberation, freedom, and deep karmic enlightenment, right? The ability to literally be free of the chains that bind you to your unhappiness, if you're willing to do the work. So there's some good stuff there, and that's actually something worth looking forward to. And the last thing I want to show you guys, right? And this is a big one. This is the biggie. Pluto and Capricorn will move into Aquarius. So again, we're going to figure out where in our chart, our solar chart, Capricorn is. So in this chart, we know Capricorn is here. So we're going to put Pluto. What am I doing? I'm writing Taurus. Pluto here. And we know it's going to go over here. As soon as I remember how to write the symbol for Pluto. So here's the thing with Pluto in Capricorn moving to Aquarius. And all planets have their greatest impact in the last degrees. Because once you've reached the end of the line, that's where all the power concentrates. And that's when it gets whipped out into expression. So if you've ever played this game, ice skating or roller skating, called the whip. So the person in the center holds the hand of the next person. You make this long chain of bodies, right? Like that. And it looks almost like a human whip on the ring, right? Here's the center person. And what happens is, everybody kind of like moves around in a circle, right? So they're doing this thing, right? As this whip is moving, right? You're moving like a whip. And then what happens is at the center, it's not really very forceful, but the person out here on the very end, right? This person, wow, they're literally feeling all the power. And if they let go or lose the hand of the person they're connected to, they will go off like a rocket, right? So last degrees of signs operate like that. When we get to the last degrees of a sign, all the power is concentrated out here. And that's when you really feel the full effect of that planet in that sign. Pluto has been in Capricorn in those last degrees for quite some time now. We are feeling it. Oh boy, howdy, are we feeling it? Because remember, Pluto is the planet of reformation, revolution, recycling, believe it or not, and renewal. So Pluto is about reformation, revolution, recycling, and renewal. It's literally about taking things down to their absolute most basic essential level, right? It's literally like the brush fires that they do where they burn out the woods so that the new seedlings for trees can grow in and have space to grow, right? It's like a necessary thing. I'm not completely sure how that works. It's a wildfire forestry sort of thing. Anyway, and even with volcanoes will burn everything in its path down to nothing, right? And until everything becomes hardened lava. But when everything returns, when Mother Nature returns, that lava soil, that volcanic soil, earth, is powerfully fertile, like more fertile than it was before. And that's what Pluto does. It's about, rebirth. So Pluto is about all of these things: reformation, revolution, recycling, renewal, rebirth. It's about bringing things down to the ashes, literally decimating all the things that are weak and not working, burning away the things that need to go so that we can have room and space and fertile ground to make something bigger, better, stronger, and move into the future, right? That's Pluto. And remember, Pluto in these last degrees, right, 27 to 30, it's the whip, right? So we're out here and we're feeling the power, the full effect of this Pluto in Capricorn. And this last year, if you've been paying attention, that's exactly what we've been saying, because Pluto also rules government and big business, and that's exactly who's been under the gun and who has been faltering and literally about to cave in. They can't hold up much longer. They have to change under this auspices of Pluto in those final degrees of Capricorn, because Pluto is reforming and revolutionizing and recycling and renewing and rebirthing our understanding and our acceptance and our framework for big business, right? Unions just in the United States just came back into full effect in the last 6 months or last year, which is huge because unions are very Iranian, but the unions are forcing the change that is being required here. And it's a powerful change. We're at those last degrees. So what that means for you, my friends, is that wherever Pluto and Capricorn is for you in your solar chart, okay, that's where you're going to be feeling the most deep, just deep rooted upheavals, right? But it's going to clear the way for a whole brand new playing field that's infinitely better than anything you could have ever imagined for yourself or built on the grounds that you're currently working with. So this one, just as an example, right? Remember, we're going back to our house rulerships to try and play detective, figure out how to do this. In this chart, Pluto is in Capricorn, those last degrees, in the 11th house. Now, the 11th house is a bit of a tricky house, right? Because it has a lot of random meanings. It's kind of hard to pinpoint. But the 11th house also, on a personal level, has a lot to do with our dreams and our goals, and also our social groups. So there's going to be a demand or major catalyst driven changes in organizations and groups and teams and social friendships, not your deep bestie kind of friendships, but your general crew, right, that you run with. Because unless you live in a mountain with goats and those are your only companions, you run with groups of people in specific environments, right? So there's people that you know from work, there's people you know from your neighborhood, there's people that you know when you're hanging out at the local bar or the club, you know, the gym. Like all these places are groups of people that are represented by the 11th house. So we have casual relationships with them. They're random people that we know because of our mutual associations within a group, but maybe not any better than that. And with Pluto here, it's going to revolutionize and demand that we revolutionize, right? Who these groups are, who we associate with, where we plant ourselves in terms of our everyday routines and workaday worlds with where people are concerned, right? So there's that. And I could try to be more specific, but then we'd have to really get into it. And like, I want you guys to do this. Remember, house rulerships. You're learning astrology right now. Okay. Now, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, okay, in this chart, it's going to move in 12th house. So let's talk about Pluto and Aquarius for a second. When Pluto moves in Aquarius, and again, you're going to be feeling this before. Let's see what I got here. You're going to be feeling this before Pluto actually moves in Aquarius. Pluto in those last degrees of Capricorn until March is really when you're going to be feeling Pluto. By the time Pluto gets to Aquarius in March, it's going to be a whole new ball game, and literally the hardest parts are going to be behind you. So Pluto in Aquarius has a lot to do with automation and machines and robots and AI. And I've got a lot of thoughts about this moving forward because it's already started. They're already trying to make big, major motion to replace labor and, menial labor service jobs with automated stuff. They're literally trying to get rid of human labor and service workers as best they can, because you don't have to give a machine a sick day or disability or health insurance. Like, you just work the machine until it's dead and then replace the machine, which is nice in theory in terms of your profit margins, but not good in practice, because that's a whole lot of people that are going to be displaced from work, and you don't really have jobs to give them, instead of that. And the whole point of a business making profit is so that the business can support the community that supports them by creating more jobs for the community. Automation is not going to do that. So there's some issues here, which is not within the realm of this. We're going to try and keep this local and more personal. So on a personal level, with Pluto and Aquarius, it's going to get a little tricky, because Aquarius is the sign of the higher mind. It's a higher octave of Mercury. And with Pluto and Aquarius, it's asking us, because remember, reformation, revolution, recycling, renewal, rebirth. It's asking us to completely change how we see the world, right? And to open up our minds to the possibility of things that we would have never considered before now, right? Literally open our minds to the possibility of impossible things, or things that make absolutely no sense to us. So the best example I can use would be, just as an example, issues of trans people and trans rights. So prior to modern surgery and modern medicine and modern science, you know, sex changes were impossible. It just didn't happen, right? But now we've got so much technology and medicine and better understanding that we're able to do these things and also provide the psychological and emotional support necessary to be able to make these transitions, right? Because it's not just, you know, slapping body parts on and removing others. There's a lot more going on there. Now, for people who are not trans familiar, like, this is very confusing, right? Like, nobody understands, like, because we don't have this experience. It's completely out of our wheelhouse of understanding what the hell that's about, right? You know, and that's okay. We don't have to understand everything. We don't have to have an opinion on everything, but we do have to accept that it is there and it is a consideration and it is something that we have to, as a group, grapple with, right? If this is going to be here, whether I understand it or not, how do I address this? How do we deal with this in a way that does not disrupt life as we know it? So trans people and trans rights, all sorts of stuff, is not that disruptive. I mean, it's confusing and it's a little unnerving, certainly for some people, but it's not that big a deal. Some of the real hiccups are coming in, and this is a Pluto and Aquarius thing, right? Where we have to recognize that this thing exists, that we don't understand what it's about, but we do have to find ways to make it, be able to incorporate it into our existence, because it's not going to go away and it's here now, but do it in ways that are seamless and not disruptive. So a classic example are prisons, right? And the prison system. So because this is all literally brand new, ink is still wet on the page, like, that's how new this stuff is. We don't really understand the best possible practices to do this. So in many instances, we're hearing stories about male prisoners who are playing the system, like literally gaming the system, and claiming to be female identified specifically and exclusively only to get themselves moved to a women's prison, even though they are not in transition or they still have male body parts or whatever. And of course, you know, the problem is this leads to not only sexual assault, which happens in both male and female prisons, but also the bigger concern is about pregnancy, right? Among other things. And also the, you know, the comfort of the prisoners and all sort of stuff. I mean, they're there for a reason. They're supposed to be rehabilitating themselves and learning from their lessons and paying their dues. It's not our job to be sadistic asses and make the experience worse for them. That's not how you get people to repair and rehabilitate themselves. So the issue now is, if we are going to have trans population in our population, like, what do we do with them in situations such as prisons? Like, do we have a whole separate prison for them? Do you have a whole separate wing? Like, what do we do? And what is the best way to manage this if this is going to be here? And it is, you know, even if it goes away 50 years from now, right now it is here and you have to deal with what's in front of you. The issues of bathrooms, right? Which is not actually that big a deal, except with younger kids who don't have a lot of sense of responsibility because they're kids, they're still learning, right? So figuring out what to do with kids in bathrooms in schools, you know, boys' bathroom, girls' bathroom, and, you know, individual bathroom, trans bathroom, because you're going to have boys that are going to be awful, you know, and they're going to try and get into the girls' bathroom just to make nuisances of themselves and game the system. So we're learning how to work around this stuff. And Pluto and Aquarius is going to absolutely bring all that front and center, along with a lot of other stuff that we were not prepared for. Nobody told us how we were supposed to deal with this because we never saw this coming. So Pluto and Aquarius in your personal chart, all of this is to say, Pluto in Aquarius in your personal chart is going to show you where you are most likely to encounter things that seem to come out of left field that you have no way to have prepared for, and may not ever completely understand, but you're still going to have to find a way to incorporate these unusual, odd, unexpected things into your life so that it's the least disruptive, right? And there's a seamless integration until we get to the other side of this and we figure out what to do with it, right? So Pluto Aquarius is a bit tricky because there's a lot of big meta picture stuff that has more to do with society and groups as a whole than the individual. So for you, my friends, look at your wheel or your solar chart. Look for Pluto. So we know in this chart with Pisces rising, Pluto is here in the 11th house in Capricorn, and then it will transition to Aquarius, where it will enter the 12th house, which is going to make that Pluto and Aquarius experience a lot more tricky because it's the 12th house. It's the hidden house. It's the psychological house. So we can expect with Pluto and Aquarius, if we think along these lines, Pluto and Aquarius represents things that we never saw coming, the unexpected, things that we have to learn to integrate, even though we were never prepared for this and we don't even understand what it is that we're dealing with. And this is completely out of left field, right? What is this thing? I don't know what to do with it, but now it's here and I got to figure out how to move it somewhere so I can get stuff done. In the 12th house, which is a psychological house, there may be a whole lot of stuff coming up that you didn't know was there, that was even an issue. So for those of you, just so you know, for those of you who are Pisces rising, if you're, and also this is going to apply to people with, again, that 8th house and possibly even the 4th is Pluto. So if you've got Pluto in the 12th, the 4th, or the 8th, any of these water houses, I will warn you now, if there's the possibility that there is some type of trauma in your past that you have forgotten about, don't know about, like don't remember, there's the distinct possibility that something may pop up that you're just like, wait, what? No, me? Huh? Like, just, yeah, it's going to be amazing. But the good news is that because it is at the beginning of the sign, not the end of the sign, like Pluto and Capricorn, right? This is the beginning of Aquarius. It will be a lot easier to deal with than Pluto and Capricorn stuff was. So you're going to be okay. You're going to get through it. It's just going to be a little alarming because it's, you know, anytime we're dealing with things we don't understand and we don't know what to do with, it's alarming. But it won't be awful. You'll get through this. So that, my friends, is your 2023 horoscope and how to put it together in your solar chart so you can become better astrologers. If you have any questions, well, if you have any general questions, you can put it in the comment box below. If you have specific questions about your personal chart, I would recommend that you send me a message and request a personal chart reading, because there's no way to get into all of that in 2 minutes or less. And we need to look at the entire chart to make actual meaningful sense of it if you have that kind of a question. Otherwise, look forward to 2023 as a general thing now, as a big overview, as a general thing. Look for 2023 to be the year of humanitarianism and charity and literally, you know, living the gospel, right? So all these faux Christians are about to have their ass handed back to them on a silver platter. For everybody else, this is literally going to be about the resolve to be better people and looking at the bigger picture and long range goals and doing the right thing for everybody in a very meaningful way. And it's going to be much easier for us to do that this year moving forward than it has been for quite some time. Now, I will say from January to May, while Jupiter's in Aries, it's still going to be a little complicated because people are still going to be selfish gits. And the selfish gits are just going to be even more selfish as these months roll by. The other thing I want to warn you guys about for 2023, there are a couple of hotspot months. So January is one of them. The other one I want you guys to circle is going to be July. The whole month of July is going to be hopping and popping like a popcorn machine. It is going to be wow, just freaking wow. May, no, it's going to be June, July. So when we get into, when we get into June, everything's going to slow down to a crawl. So if you guys have anything, because summer is going to be slow and hot. So if you guys have anything important that you need to get done with the least amount of interference, try to get them done before June or wait until after August begins. Okay, so June and July in particular are just problematic in terms of getting anything done. Actually, mid-May through July. Sorry about that. Okay, and other hotspot months. Yeah, so the other hotspot month I want you to circle your calendars for is going to be April. So April is going to be particularly problematic. I would keep an eye on that. Let's see, what's March 8th, April 20th. March and April. No, it's March. Sorry, kids. So March 8th through 18th with an emphasis around the 13th. That week is going to be really sensitive, a little sensitive. So those are your hotspots. So again, to recap, January, Mars will station direct, and we've got Mercury and Uranus right on top of it. So that whole week from the 12th to 22nd, it's a big hotspot week. March, from the 8th to the 18th, that's a big hotspot week that month. That's a hopping month, so circle that month. June, middle of May through all of August, or no, all of July, middle of May through all of July, until you get to August, it's just going to be problematic with all sorts of interference and obstructions and things coming out of left field that just don't want to make your what is what I'm looking for? Just seem like they want to interfere with the plan. So you've got big important stuff that you need the least interference from. Try to schedule it before or after mid-May, end of July. And that is it. And then we're good. I think I gave you March. I did. And then we're mostly good for the rest of the year. It's not so awful. Not so like, woohoo, what the hell just happened? And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And that is it for 2023, and we'll talk to you guys later. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, share. The monthly horoscopes will be coming up shortly, and I'll have January out for you soon. Okay, bye.